Hey there, and welcome to the Cinnamon Effect podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this vibrant journey of discovery and growth. This podcast is your go-to space for embracing intention, where you'll find clarity on your unique path, deepen those meaningful connections, and unleash your creativity like never before. We'll explore how to build unshakable confidence and celebrate the beauty of gratitude, all while savoring the calm that consistency brings to our lives. Thank you for being with me. Let's sprinkle a little cinnamon into your day and make life sweeter, healthier, and more fulfilling. Hey guys, Kimberly solo on the mic. I just turned 46. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. When I look back on 45, it wasn't the year that changed my life. It was the year that I stopped overcomplicating things. I really think that is the defining moment that I stopped making everything so complicated. I did some things that on the surface felt really big, like python hunting, stepping into spaces that were completely new to me. But when I really sat with it, the biggest shifts weren't in what I did. They were in how I was thinking and what I was allowing and what I was finally ready to let go of. So I want to share a few of the lessons that genuinely changed me in this 45th chapter of my life. It was not like super dramatic and everything is different, but quieter and more powerful. Like I've been building all of these things for so long, and just like dominoes, they're kind of like falling and flowing, and that's kind of what this last year was for me. It was stuff started to flow a little bit better. Maybe the building blocks that I had set up over the past, decades, are starting to really come together in a meaningful way. So I'm going to go through some of these really impactful lessons. And one of them was only a couple of months ago. I had Holly Meyer Lucas on this podcast with me, and she said something, and I literally have thought about it every single day. It's lived in my mind. I can't ignore it. And it's that the cage door isn't locked. This is like my favorite thing to say. The cage door isn't locked. It's like every time I find myself making excuses, getting scared about something, or telling myself I can't do it, I think about this self-inflicted cage door. I actually picture myself as a lioness inside a cage, and that I'm just able to open the cage. The door is not locked. So whatever you're thinking you can't do, most of the time you're telling yourself that you can't do it, and you are creating this cage inside which you live, and that door isn't locked. Just open the door and walk out of it. And so this has lived rent-free in my head for a while. So I felt like I was living inside of these invisible boundaries and things I should do or how I should show up, expectations that I just followed and never really questioned. Nothing physically changed for me, but the moment I realized I could leave and that I had a choice, everything has felt different to me. So it's not about blowing up my life. It's about recognizing that I was the one keeping myself in this safe little box and with these safe patterns that I had established for years and years and years of my life. And so this year, a huge part of it was realizing that this cage door isn't locked and I can just step out of it at any time. So that is just breathe into that. Picture this cage door. And I know it's so visual, and I'm such a visual person. So I think that's why it works for me. And I think I can think about it, and it sets me free a little bit, that feeling of just being able to do whatever I want to do. And just because I was something yesterday doesn't mean I have to be the same thing tomorrow, that I can reinvent myself, or I can, morph and change into something else, and that anything is possible. Anything is absolutely possible in this life. And you most likely are the one that's telling yourself that it isn't. So that's just the visual part of the cage door isn't locked, is just knowing that at any point you can change anything. You can rewrite your story, and you can escape these boundaries that you've set forth for yourself because it's really holding you back, right? So that was one of the really big lessons that I have learned this year, being 45, being midlife. I don't even feel midlife. It's like, I can't believe I'm 46 and I'm closer to 50. Like that seems crazy to me because I really do feel like I am just getting started. There's so many things that I have just begun. I started my podcast at the very end of 2023. I mean, it's like these things and we're building and it's becoming stronger and it's something that has been so amazing in my life. But I'm just getting going. I am just getting started in this whole thing. And so my next lesson was do it anyway. Do it anyway, even when you're overthinking it, even when it's not perfect, even when you feel like a beginner. I've had so many moments this year where I could feel myself trying to think my way into readiness. And I realized that the ready moment never comes. If you listen to one of my solo episodes I just released was about a dance competition. And, I felt prepared. I had practiced for 5 months going into it. And still there's little curveballs that get thrown at you. And just know that that's always going to be the case. So overthinking is just fear dressed up as productivity. And I think I resonate with that so strongly because I am a little bit of an overthinker and I try and control and I try and make sure. I've told you I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I do try and just control the thing until it feels like it's perfect. And then I'm ready to do it. But I'm learning to just do things anyway, to jump in with both feet. And I think so much learning comes from that. The only way through is action. It really is. The only way through it is action, to actually go through it and to do it. And you learn so much along the way. So if you wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, you're really postponing probably these very important lessons that you need to learn to really get started, Do it anyway. Also, do it anyway is motivation for me every single morning. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I don't really feel like working out. I do it anyway. There's certain things that I don't want to do or I avoid. It's the one thing in your day that you hate doing, whether it's making phone calls or writing emails or answering emails or whatever. Do it anyway and do it first. Get it out of the way. Eat the frog. Someone told me that one time. Eat the frog. Do the thing first that you don't want to do. Just eat the frog. And so I always think about too, again, so visual and like kind of gross, but I love that. So doing it anyway, whatever pops into my head that morning that I feel like I don't want to do, I just commit to doing it anyway and doing it first, getting it out of the way so that I can have the best day possible going forward. My third lesson is that courage comes first and confidence comes later. I think we've been conditioned to believe we're supposed to feel ready, certain, confident before we do something, right? That is absolutely not how it works. You take the step, you show up while you're still figuring it out. And the confidence is something that builds on the other side of that. And I'll say, when I was python hunting, like I got such a confidence boost from being the girl that went out there in the Everglades and grabbed a python by the neck when I was scared as hell to do it. I was so scared. Yes, I signed up for it. Yes, I thought maybe I don't want to do this. I did it anyway because that's how I am. And the confidence that I got from that, because so many things are not as scary as grabbing a python by the neck. I'm just here to tell you, when you're like staring down at this giant, like 40-pound, 16-foot snake, and you can grab that thing by the neck, like everything else seems so lame and not scary. So the courage, to do it, I had to work up to that. But the confidence that I felt after the fact was incredible. And I'm still feeling that. It's been almost a year since that experience. And it resurfaces all the time in my life where I think about, you know what, Kimberly, you were that woman that went out there and you did that. And so I have to remind myself that that's who I am. That's what I did. And to just kind of own that and be fearless in the pursuit of, different experiences or putting myself out there, which, takes an element of courage too, to do that. So, and to give you guys pieces of my life and who I am. And I think there's so much confidence that can come from just doing these little things. Now, the dance that I just did, it was such a confidence builder as well. And it's not because you're like good at something. I think people think, well, they're only going to feel confident if they're really good at something, right? Well, I've done many, many things where I was not really good at something, but I tried it anyway and I gave it a shot. And so do it anyway. Courage comes first, confidence comes later. That's my third lesson for you. The fourth lesson, you can expand without starting over. Not everything is a start from square one. Think about all the things that you've built over time and you've built over the years, and just expanding on one little element of that thing in your life that you laid the groundwork for. Just think if you put a little extra energy there to expand that part of your life. This year for me was not about becoming a different person. It was about becoming more honest about who I already am and allowing myself to go deeper into that. I think that is a really important designation, that I wanted more dance. I wanted more creativity. I wanted more experiences that actually light me up. And it wasn't reinvention, it was expansion. I think it's also important to realize the people that are expanders for you. I've talked about this before because I think there's certain people that you encounter in your life who expand you, and they push you to do things that maybe you aren't so comfortable with. And it was funny because when I was rehearsing for the dance competition, I met a woman. I was in a boutique and I met this woman who was working there, and we just got to talking, and she was kind of asking me things about myself. And I told her about the competition that I was doing, and she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, you must have come in here to give me a message." She said, "I have been wanting to start ballroom dancing for years." She says, "I've talked about it for years. I've wanted to do it. I've looked into studios. I've talked to instructors, and I just haven't done it." And she said, "I think you're my sign to actually do it." And I did. I felt like I was this little messenger that was sent to tell her that she was supposed to start ballroom dancing. So I feel like I need to go back in there and check in with her and see if she's dancing. But, women, I think I see this sometimes with people who are divorcing. And maybe, yes, some people get divorced. They're meant to get divorced. They're in toxic relationships, But sometimes I think that people are maybe a little bored. They're like bored with their life, and they decide that they're going to completely start over and they're going to completely become a different person, and they're going to, abandon the partner that they're with. And they think that the grass is greener on the other side and that they can find this expansion and happiness with somebody else. But I think sometimes it's this inside job that needs to be done where they need to figure out the expansion on the inside, and not project that on, well, it's this person's fault that I feel this way, right? You have to take ownership of yourself and your own feelings, and you have to create the life that you want to live. It's kind of a side note, but I just feel like I see that. Like maybe there's just some work that the person needs to do on themselves to kind of fulfill that need to want to like blow life up and start completely over. So, fourth lesson, you can expand without starting over. Fifth lesson. Okay, this was a big one for me because I moved this year, and The fifth lesson is that your environment is either supporting you or draining you. You know, I love feng shui. I have a background in feng shui. This is so important. It really hit me. I actually realized that I felt a little stuck in the house that I was living in. I was very attached to the house I was living in, but I did feel after a while a little stuck there. And we had some difficult neighbors. I felt like I needed more storage in the house. But my dad had remodeled the house and I was connected to it. I felt very connected. I didn't want to leave it. It felt like something like a gift my dad had given me that I didn't want to get rid of. And we tried to figure out ways where maybe we could keep the house as an investment and move, but we couldn't make the move that we wanted to make if we still owned this house. So we deliberated about this. Also, my son was really resistant to moving. He did not really want to move. And we said, so we were just going back and forth, like, should we do it? Should we not do it? But constantly it was just gnawing at me that it was time to move on. And I've done this in the past where we moved from Utah. We lived in Florida. We moved to Utah and we moved back to Florida. And before we moved, actually, we moved back to Florida, but we still owned the house in Utah. And so I just felt like I could not get rid of the house until one day I said, I'm ready. Let's put it on the market. And it sold within 3 days. It was like, sometimes I'll plant the seed in my head of like, I think I want this to happen. And I'll think about it. Again, a little bit of overthinking is probably happening, but I'll kind of let the idea come to a head and then realize that once all the energy is in place and everything is aligned, then it will flow as it should. And that's exactly what happened here. One day we decided, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to move. We're going to see what this whole exercise looks like. Like, are we going to find a place? Is this all going to line up? And of course, the universe opened up and sent us the helpful people that we needed to put all this action in motion. And it happened within a matter of weeks. We actually sold the house. We found another house. We were able to live in the one house before we had to move to the next one. I mean, all the things lined up. Okay. So I also want to give you another little story because I was in my early 20s. I had bought my first place, my first house. I had my real estate license at 24. I think I've talked about that before. I bought a townhouse and I ended up living in it for a little while, but then I started dating my husband and I ended up moving in with him, a couple years later, and I was renting this house out. Now, the market had tanked a little bit and I had this renter who was in there. I rented it to a couple different people over, the years. And I was trying to keep this house because I thought, it's going to be a great investment one day, which was true. But I was so stressed out in my mid-20s. It was really more responsibility than probably I needed. And I remember a friend said to me, why don't you just sell it? Why don't you just sell this house? And I was actually working in real estate and I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think like, you know what? I should just sell this house. It felt like something I was tied to and I had to see it through, but it really wasn't right for me at that time. And so I finally decided to sell it, that this situation and this house was draining the life out of me. And it's actually another example of the cage door isn't locked. The cage door isn't locked. Like I so easily could have sold that house. And I finally decided to sell it. And, everything flowed and I ended up getting out of it, moving in with my husband. We became engaged and I moved into his house and like things started to flow for me. And so as soon as we sold this house that I was living in and we got our new house, once I moved in there, I realized, wow, the energy feels so different here. And it felt so much lighter. I didn't realize how heavy that energy at my other house was feeling to me. It was just weighing on me, whether I needed a change or whatever it was. Like I just had to move on and we adapt easily to these new situations. So if you are living somewhere that doesn't resonate with you or doesn't align with you, I know the market is doing different things. It always does, right? But you can always choose to do something different. You can always choose to go somewhere different. We moved across the country because we felt like we needed a change. Like sometimes you just have to take that leap and you just have to go and live somewhere else and be in a different environment. So I really felt that when I moved. I feel so much lighter. I felt like things started to flow in my life. I think when you feel stuck somewhere, it actually translates into so many different aspects of your life. So once you free that one situation, everything else can free as well. My last lesson is around wellness. And this is Health and Wellness Podcast. And, we talk about so many different wellness things. We talk about, healing from the inside out. We talk about routines and the things that we're doing in the morning and the evening and what are these practices. And I love to dive into that. But what I noticed this year for myself is that I feel like I simplified my routine a little bit. We're living in a world and a wellness world, especially that's constantly telling us to do more, add more supplements, more this, optimize more, do this, biohack more, do all these things. And what I found that consistency for me doesn't come from complexity. It comes from alignment and feeling aligned with the things that I'm choosing to do. And so we can't do everything. We can try to do all the sauna and the red light and, all the things, but we can't do everything. So you may have to choose the routines wisely. So you feel the most aligned, because when you feel aligned, you are going to follow through and you are going to actually do the thing, not just talk about it, not just buy the things and not use them. You're going to actually do the things. So I think it's, choosing things that feel good in your body and not things that sound good on paper. There's certain workouts that I just prefer to do. I'm more choosy now with the workouts and thinking like, does this feel good in my body? Do I feel stressed out during the exercise or during the group class? Like, is this stressing me out? Like, you should feel relaxed when you're training and exercising. So really pay attention to that. So what gives me energy? What feels like joy to me? Because feeling joy is such a huge component of wellness. And that's what I've learned, I think, from doing this podcast and talking to so many different people. Maybe even more important than the supplements you're taking is the joy that you're feeling in your life. That's why I'm so big on hobbies and finding that little thing that really lights you up, because I think that is so important. It's so important for your overall health to have these things that really give you joy. If it doesn't feel good in some way, you're not going to stick with it. I promise you're just not going to. So this past year, time is so precious that I really said, if this is not making me happy, this person isn't making me happy, I don't like taking these particular supplements. Yes, some of them I do have to take, but all the things, if I don't like the taste of that, not that it has to, taste like dark chocolate, but it's just the things I'm just trying to choose more wisely and commit to those things. So when I look at all of these lessons together, there's a common thread, and the common thread is freedom. Freedom is the thread of all of these lessons. So freedom from expectations, freedom from overthinking, freedom from environments that don't support me, freedom from the idea that more is always better, because more is not always better. And what I realized is that freedom is not something that you find. You don't find the freedom. You allow the freedom to come into your life. You allow yourself to feel free from all of these things that hold you back. And so that for me is what 45 was really all about. Not necessarily a year of reinvention, but a year of refinement. So less noise, more truth, more authenticity, more of what lights me up. And I just wanted to share those lessons for you. I think that's exactly, I'm taking this momentum and I'm taking these thoughts and these lessons into my 46th year, my 46th chapter of this amazing book called Life. And I hope you enjoyed these lessons. Maybe you'll apply them in your own life. And I'll see you guys next time on The Cinnamon Effect. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Cinnamon Effect. If you enjoyed our time together, don't forget to hit that follow button on your podcast app and sprinkle a little love by leaving us a 5-star rating and a quick review. Your support means the world to me. For even more goodness, check out the show notes where you'll find links to some of my favorite products. And don't forget to visit thecinnamoneffect.com to connect with me directly or to grab your TCE Gratitude Journal, your next step towards a more grateful life. I can't wait to spice things up with you again next time. Stay vibrant, stay inspired, and remember to add a little cinnamon to your life every day.